Blog Talk Radio.
Live from Washington, D.C., it's Quintessential Listening, Poetry Online Radio. Now, here's your host, Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of Quintessential Listening, Poetry Online Radio. I am Michael Anthony Ingram. Tonight we are celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., a man who fought for civil rights and attempted to bridge the gap between the races. He worked to bring hope and healing to America, hope and healing that we are in so need of today. Tonight's episode is very special, as I said, and it's twofold. There will be an open mic reading, as well as a reading by noted poet Joseph Ross, who will share poems from his acclaimed collection, Raising King. Tonight will be a feast for the ears. Joseph, are you with me?
I'm with you, and I'm ready for the feast.
All right. Fantastic. Your book, Raising King, tell us about it.
Well, it's a long time in the making. I started to teach Dr. King's life and work back in the early 90s when I was teaching at Notre Dame. And these poems are reflecting on Dr. King's work has been just kind of rolling around my head for a long time. A few years ago, I was teaching a composition class at American University here in D.C., and a colleague knew of my interest in Dr. King and so urged me to do a class on him, a writing class, but using just his work. So what I did was three of the books he wrote during his life, scholars consider his political autobiographies. Stride Toward Freedom, he writes, it's all about the Montgomery bus boycott. He's about 27 years old when he writes it. He's a young man. Then Why We Can't Wait, he writes about the violence of 1963. He's a little bit older, a little bit more seasoned. And then Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? He writes in 1967, the last year of his life. So all the time I was teaching the class using those three books, I was thinking there's a poetry book here divided up in the same way. And so that's what I did with Raising King. It's got three sections, with quotes from Stride Toward Freedom, then from Why We Can't Wait, then from Where Do We Go From Here, and poems then that respond to some of Dr. King's words from when he is a young man in Montgomery all the way to Memphis.
All right, very nice. I'd like to hear from you, though. What was an early experience where you learned that poetry or poetic language had power?
It was probably in high school, and I can remember out in Southern California sitting in this kind of basement classroom, ninth grade English, and reading Frost and Sandburg and Langston Hughes, Emily Dickinson, and just really being taken by these poets and what they were doing, that there was far more in their work than was just the literal meaning of those words, that the craft they used added to it, sometimes double meanings that they were able to pull off from good line breaks and images. It just struck me this is a really rich kind of language. And so like most poets, I probably started writing some really bad poems.
Right.
Continued on and have really been writing ever since.
Right. That word power is such a strong word in itself. And I think about your work. I think about Dr. King, just the relationship between the two of you, actually, in terms of what you've been able to do. I'm really excited about tonight. As we have an opportunity to talk about Dr. King's life and legacy and power of the power of words, that is so important.
And he knew that, the power of words. He certainly used them to great effect, to teach, to encourage, to motivate, to keep people doing very hard things. No surprise, we're still reading his words today.
Yes, very much so. Speaking of surprises, were there any surprises when you wrote your book? Anything that you learned about yourself?
Wow. I think like most or like a lot of writers, I overwrote the book. I had far more poems than would eventually fit, and so I think I had to sort of tame or kind of tamp down some of my own preferences about Dr. King's life, and try to make sure that the poems that really did end up in the book give a kind of a comprehensive sense of, and an honest sense of his life. So, I think people are sometimes, people today in 2021 are a little bit surprised maybe at how many of the poems really reflect his deep commitment to nonviolence, how many of the poems really connect to his deep commitment to Christianity. But those two things both are related, but they're you can't pretend that you're talking about Dr. King's life if you aren't talking about both of those things, nonviolence and Christian faith. He was obviously a committed Christian who understood that meant he needed to be nonviolent. And so I think, kind of just realizing here was coming a book that was different. I'd never written a book entirely about one person, and that it needed to have a kind of honesty and integrity. And so I had to pull back on some of my own concerns, I think. Yeah.
When you say concerns, what do you mean?
I might have wanted to use more of his kind of militant quotes. I might have wanted to use, and I certainly do. Some of that is in the book too. I think many of the poems in the book are in Dr. King's voice, and that is a complicated thing to try to do, I think. So I had to really just make sure that I was true to him. A lot of people would say that I am a white man, that someone who looks like me should not be writing in his voice. And I understand some of that concern. I'm also somebody who just deeply believes that if more people knew his life and work, that the world would really be better. And so while I can respect some of those concerns, I obviously still made the choice to write the poems. And so, I think the test of it is, did the poems sound true to him? And that was what I felt like I had to do.
Have you heard any response from his family?
I have not. Though the King estate, we had to get, with the publisher, we had to get permission, to intellectual property rights, because every poem has a title that I've written, and then an epigraph, which is a quote from him, sometimes just one sentence, sometimes several sentences, and then the poem that responds to that quote. So his words are on every poem. So it wasn't, personal permission, but it was legal permission from the King estate to use the words.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, without further ado, I'd like to turn the program over to you. Everyone,
Okay.
This is Joseph Roth.
Thank you, Michael. Martin Luther King Jr. Prologue. 1. In the beginning was a boat, swollen with humans history would call slaves. The men who loved these boats thought they knew Jesus. They prayed Jesus. They ate Jesus. Their boat cut the waters like a whip, leaving a weeping scent in its churning wake. The moon lit the water around the boat, but the moon did not light the boat. The boat worked through the waters in the dark. Now the boat is dust. The whip survives. 2. A man came who was not a slave. He was not the moon, its light, or the water. Like the boats before him, he too cut the water, but he was not the whip. He had bones the whip could not reach, but he was not the bones. He had light to cut the darkness, but he was not the light. He met the darkness when the whip became a bullet. The man stood, and the bullet came. His bones are dust, but the man survives. And this poem is called Christology. Dr. King wrote in Stride Toward Freedom back about Montgomery, it was Jesus of Nazareth that stirred the Negroes. The white people often say I'm stirring people up, causing a ruckus where there was no ruckus before I came. It might seem that way to them because they've never been at a Negro family's dinner. They've never tasted the angry exhaustion that lives on this side of town. They've never sat in Reverend Abernathy's church. They've never heard him preach the Jesus he knows, the leper touching Jesus, the cheek turning Jesus, the enemy loving Jesus. That's the ruckus. It's a holy ruckus, and Jesus brought it, not me. Dr. King goes on in a poem called Tired, wrote about tired feet for tired souls, also about Montgomery and the walking that took place during the boycott. These feet slip between sheets to a morning floor. Before coffee and language, they know the air. They welcome sock and shoe. Laces hold them ready for the work of the day, of being beneath. They create the straight way of sidewalk, the step of curb, the caution of crosswalk, the patience of standing still. When heel and arch and toe press leather to concrete, guff the smile of protest, the unmistakable joy of defiance. And Dr. King wrote about the first day of the bus protest, called the Day of Days, December 5th. You plan and call and organize and prepare for every eventuality, but you never know what will come. My wife and I woke earlier than usual, and I was afraid. I was still saying, if we could get 60%, I would be satisfied. In my mind, buses rolled by with black people atop the bus and hanging from windows, dragging their feet. White men and women filled the bus, laughing, doubled over laughing. What was I thinking would happen? I was in the kitchen, whispering over a cup of coffee, when I heard Coretta cry, "Martin, Martin, come quickly." I stopped praying and ran into the living room, breathing like an army. A slowly moving bus rolled down our street like a hearse, the casket still years away. Coretta sang into my faithlessness. Darling, it's empty. I could hardly believe it. Sometimes believing and knowing have to happen at the same time. He wrote about the mass meetings in Montgomery that kept people motivated and kept the boycott organized. Mass meetings. These meetings were our lungs. Here we breathed. We needed to christen an organization, a leader. I didn't know these people. Abernathy was my only friend. We baptized ourselves the Montgomery Improvement Association, a name as good as any other, better than one that sounded too much like their white citizen councils. They were named for terror. We were named for resurrection. Then it was me. Put the new guy out there. He hasn't been beaten by them yet. He has a degree of distance that will throw them for a bit. My only real qualification, I didn't yet know the density of the human fist. Dr. King also writes in Stride Toward Freedom, the nonviolent resistor not only refuses to shoot his opponent, but he also refuses to hate him. This poem is titled Inheritance. That angry voice on the phone was once someone's dearest baby, a most promising little boy who said, "Listen, N-word, we've taken all we want from you. Before next week, you'll be sorry you ever came to Montgomery." This beautiful little boy, smiling, giggling, today sings out a hatred he has learned, a song his country handed him. His hatred and fear are not really his. He inherited them. He took them into himself without knowing how gruesome they would taste, how they would sicken him too. I cannot hate him for inheriting this. I will not destroy him just because someone taught him to destroy me. While in Montgomery, a bomb was put on Dr. King's porch that blew up, and he writes, after putting the baby to bed, Coretta and Mrs. Williams went to the living room to look at television. About 9:30, they heard a noise in front that sounded as though someone had thrown a brick. In a matter of seconds, an explosion rocked the house. This poem is titled Bomb. War is like this. Two women, a baby, a man gone, a man lost. I was lost like this. A baby in the back bedroom, a wife shaking, unable to be still, a friend calm but about to break. A crowd gathered. I ran home to see what was left of me. The crowd was angry, and I wanted their anger to love my own. But my wife's shaking stopped, keeping me from breaking, keeping me from becoming the bomb I feared. Dr. King writes in a poem, in Stride Toward Freedom, Coretta had already fallen asleep, and just as I was about to doze off, the telephone rang, and it was another one of those get out of town in a week phone calls. In this state of exhaustion, when my courage had all but gone, I decided to take my problem to God. With my head in my hands, I spoke, I have nothing left. This poem is called Midnight. I have always been here, in this midnight kitchen, in this midnight city, in this midnight life. I have always known this is when the strength comes, in this midnight country, in my midnight throat, from this midnight God. Another bomb was put on Dr. King's porch that did not explode, and this poem is called Smoldering. The language spoken by an unexploded bomb is the language of possibility. It is a terror tongue. It sounds like a silent infant. It echoes like a still woman, silent on the floor of her own home. It is where they wait for father and husband. Home is where the heart breaks into pieces the size of privilege. Is it my good luck that 12 sticks of dynamite did not sing the chorus they were taught? Is it my good fortune that a fuse doesn't always complete its work? Here is America's truth. This bomb was not the only thing smoldering in my home. And each of the three sections of Raising King, I decided to end each with a poem in the voice of Coretta Scott King, for whom Dr. King's life couldn't have been possible if not for hers and her support. She was a trained singer, and so this poem is titled Coretta Scott King, Montgomery. If there is sheet music for this city, I have never seen its likes before. The melody keeps changing. Just as I start to sing one line, I see the notes at the end of the line dodging and ducking in every direction. Quarter notes dart from their place on the staff and try to stand up taller, puff out their chests like whole notes, keeping the voice alive longer. I can sing almost anything, but this shape-shifting opera of shoes makes it hard to breathe. It keeps moving from solo to choral piece. I know there are other voices, and I know their timbre is all shoe and sweat, but I fear they will leave me bare. Dr. King begins his second book, Why We Can't Wait, about 1963, describing a boy in Harlem and a girl in Alabama. This poem is titled 1963, 1. A boy sits on his stoop. The house leans hopeless as he is. The rats love him and his family. They know him. He has nowhere to go. He has nowhere to be. He dreams of nowhere. When he wakes after dreams of nowhere, he goes nowhere. His school forgets him. He forgets him. His parents work, but their exhaustion forgets him too. Is he a dream? Has his country deferred him? Can nowhere explode? 2. A girl sits on her stoop. The wood of her home older than her grandmother, but not as sturdy. The field where her parents work is thirsty as she is, but not as angry. She sits and remembers school, but learns now in a field because debts are loud. They shout more fury than books. 3. This is the year young people will sing fury in a melody that hurts, in a rhythm that burns, a flame so hot fire hoses shove these singers against walls. But those hoses and their water, their judges, their county clerks, their governor, and their country cannot extinguish anything. Dr. King would be the first to say that he did not do much of anything he did alone. And always at his side was Ralph Abernathy, an older minister he met in Montgomery who was with him until his last moment. When they were deciding to go to be arrested in Birmingham, from when he would write the letter from Birmingham jail, he asked Ralph Abernathy to get arrested with him, knowing that he wouldn't be able to be in his pulpit on Sunday, which Reverend Abernathy wanted. This poem is called Martin King Speaks of Ralph Abernathy. I knew what he would say before I asked him, but asking is my religion. He shook his head and smiled like he always does. He spoke in the language of brother, in the dialect of love. He knew the buoyancy of a decision made. He knew I did too. Once you say it, the doing is easier. Once you do it, your body floats into prayer. Dr. King also describes a bomb being placed on his brother, Reverend A.D. King. His house was bombed in 1963, and this poem is called My Brother's Keeper. I am, of course, my brother's keeper. I have always been my brother's keeper. We have always been our brother's keepers. His home is our home. The bomb on his porch is the bomb on our porch. The men who leave the bomb in the darkness, they are ours too. Moving into poems from the last book. The last night of his life, most people know Dr. King spoke in the Mason Temple in Memphis. And so this poem is called The Mountaintop. An exhaustion rests on my skin like sweat. Tonight, I am afire with this truth. I and we are one. Whether I see victory does not matter anymore. Whether my children see it is all that matters. That the children of Memphis see it is enough. Tonight, I am alive with this comfort. I can let it all go. The worst fear will eventually come true. I will not know its day and time until it is here. Even then, I might not know it. Tonight, I am released with this glory. My own eyes have seen it. Tonight, I am at peace with this terror. And let me finish with the last poem in the book, Martin Luther King Jr. Epilogue. 1. When his body is carried through the streets in a wooden wagon older than his father, when his children look on his lifeless skin with curious grief, when his widow's face waits in stillness, knowing every day from now on could be a bullet. 2, like the many who killed him, he too knew Jesus. But his life prepared his hands for the silk of wood. He readied his palms for the kiss of nails. He knew more than knowing can say. He bled more than blood. 3, most days, memory is the enemy, but no one wants a memory. We want the touch, the real man. One day, memory is all that remains. We will all burn down to its truth. 4, he knew memory wedded to time makes possible. He knew memory loved into the future can crush a bullet into sand. He knew this was not hope or magic. He knew memory burned into tomorrow is not a certainty. Every moment waits to be used. And using time carefully is our why. Using time with love is our revolution. This is how we raise him. This is how we rise. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Joseph. Incredible work.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Incredible pieces. Incredible.
Yes.
What do you hope that readers get, in quotes, from encountering your poems? What do you want them to get from it?
I want them to have an encounter with this man. I mean, I hope that this is a kind of a biography. It's a kind of a way to meet someone, and that he might become then a kind of a companion through which we make better decisions, through which we make decisions about how to treat other people, how to treat ourselves, how to build a country. But I think essentially I want the book to be an encounter, to be a meeting. So people feel like in the book, I like to say he invites us to walk with him from Montgomery to Memphis. And I think so that he can be with us for the rest of our lives. And I don't mean in some kind of fuzzy way like I'm a fan or something, but
right.
so that the choices we make in our lives, we make thinking about him and thinking about things he said and things that he did and things that happened to him, so that he almost becomes a part of our ethics. But most of us have to have an encounter with someone first before they have that kind of deep impact on us. And he has had that on me, and he still has that on me. And I just want to invite people to walk with him from Montgomery to Memphis, because I think if people are really open to him, he will come into them and he won't let them go.
Wow. I commend you, my friend.
Well,
what
thank
do you think, as we think about Dr. King today, based on your research of him, what do you think he'd say about what's happening today in our world, in our country?
Yeah. And this moment in our country is so loaded, isn't it? I mean, it's really...
Yes, it is.
It's really something. Well, I guess a couple things. I think he would look at the great inequality, economic, racial, educational, across the country and across the world. And I think it would break his heart even more to think that all of these years since 1968, and we haven't made more progress than we have. I think he would shake his head and have a whole lot of hard things to say to us about that. Vast wealth and dramatic poverty, so close to each other in the same country, to say nothing of around the world. I also think that he would see the intense engagement of young people, especially that we saw this past summer in the Black Lives Matter movement and protests after the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. I think he would look at the engagement of young people, black and white and others, and I think he would be really excited by that. I think he would see a lot of that as the promise coming true, or beginning to come true in some ways. But I do think it's both of those things. I think he would be very happy to see the excitement and the passion and the insistence in the movements today, especially among young people. But I think he would still also be dismayed, especially at the growing inequality in America and around the world. I think those things, the three things he said, poems in the book about this, what he called the giant triplets he thought were our greatest dangers that had to be eradicated: racism, poverty, and militarism. I think he would look at all three of those things and see not a ton of progress has been made, especially on poverty and militarism. In America, we might say, well, there's been a lot of progress in terms of things like segregation, and in some ways, a lot of that's true. We certainly don't have, segregated lunch counters or drinking fountains anymore. But a lot of our neighborhoods are segregated. Our schools are still often dramatically segregated. But militarism and poverty, we have a lot of work to do. And I think he would really call us to work on those things harder. Can I turn that to you? What do you think? What do you think he would say, looking at America today?
Wow. I think, as you said, that we've got a lot of work to do before we can truly be a country that stands up for what it believes in. Because without people coming together, there's really no opportunity for growth and development. We've got to learn to be able to work together. We've got to put away miscommunication, disinformation. We've got to put all those things away and look at what's true, what's real. I think that's what I would share and think. That we've got to come together, Joseph.
Yeah.
We've got to come together somehow, some way.
Yeah. One of the things he says in Montgomery is that how the black community and the white community in Montgomery, and I'm sure true in lots of other cities too, how they really did not know each other at all. And one of his great concerns at the end of the bus boycott, for example, was that the black community was preparing to ride the buses on a non-segregated basis. They were talking about how they would do it and how they would not gloat, they would not laugh, they wouldn't say, we won, they wouldn't do any of that. And one of his great concerns was that the white community of Montgomery did no preparation. Like the leaders of, in white churches or white civic leaders, and of course, privileged people never think they need to prepare for anything. And there wasn't a lot of violence on the buses afterward anyway, but he thought that was largely because the black people had really prepared so as not to provoke anything. And that speaks to exactly what you're describing. Like we don't know what it's like to work together. If you've never been in a classroom, with people of other groups, if you've never been on a work group with people of other groups, if you've never had a boss or people working under you of different groups, I think you're right. We don't have a whole lot of hope, but we have to come together and learn how to work together. And too many people live very segregated lives still in America, and that's part of our problem, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for sharing your work. As I said earlier, it's incredible. Is your book available on Amazon?
It is. Yep.
Raising King, everybody. We'll be right back. back. I am Michael Anthony Ingram. I'm here with Joseph Ross. The night is an open mic celebration to the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The call-in number is 646-787-1631, and I think we've got a caller, Joseph.
Terrific.
All right. Let's bring this person on. Area code 202, the first three numbers are 258. You're on the air. Hello?
Hello, Michael and Joe. This is Greg Luce calling from Arlington, Virginia.
Hey, Greg.
Hello,
Glad
Greg.
you called in.
Yes, Michael, you remember you interviewed me one time, I guess
Oh,
a year
yes,
or so ago.
Of course.
And, of course, I love
Of course,
your
I want you to come
program.
back.
Yes, well, say the word, and I am prepared. In the meantime, first of all, of course, Joe, it's always a great pleasure to hear you, and, you know, your book is fantastic. There's nothing more I can add to what Michael has already said.
Well, thank you.
Since you had made the offer, Michael, I do have a relatively recent, in fact, it's the most recent thing I've finished that I think somewhat relates to the theme, and it's very personal to me. It's not too long. If you'd like to hear it, I'd be glad to share it now.
I'd love to hear it.
I would too.
Great, thank you.
Gregory is a fine poet, and I'm really grateful. Thank you, Greg.
Yes, thank you. Oh, I will mention, too, that Joseph, besides being an excellent poet, is also the most generous friend you could ask for. He's written blurbs for two of my books, so I'm glad to be able to give back a little bit. This poem is sort of dealing with my own ancestry and what it's like to be a white Southerner in the 21st century with a legacy of slave owners and Confederate soldiers, but not really making it about me, but just sort of trying to come to terms with it. So this is called Coming into Texas. They came in from the Northeast, my ancestors, and there were big rivers, Tennessee, Mississippi, Red, to cross, but they did it in daylight, not after dark or hidden in the back of a truck, and they didn't need to swim. They rode in through the tall grass, over the red dirt flatland, up and down the rolling hills, through luxuriant wildflowers to Grimes and Montgomery counties. I don't know if they brought their slaves or acquired them after settling, but settle they did, and soon spread out, putting their slaves to work on the rich land, propagating the Dunhams and Woods down to my mother's mother. I came to Texas by way of my mother and Yankee father, descended from Puritans. Both gone now, they left me with mixed blood and mixed feelings about all my forebears. Thank you.
Nice.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory.
They
Yes,
did it.
thanks for
They
having me.
did it in daylight. That's a great. that's a great phrase. It points out the difference
They did
without
it in
pointing out
daylight.
the difference.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Gregory. Wow.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. All right, we've got another caller, Joseph.
Great.
Good evening. This is Michael Anthony Ingram. Is this Valerie?
It is.
Hello, Valerie. I'm here with Joseph Ross. How are you tonight?
Valerie.
Hello.
Hello.
My cat. Hey, stop it. My cat is currently chewing my notebook. Stop it. Sorry. So I have two poems tonight, but Michael, Dr. Anthony, Dr. Ingram.
Yes.
Do you know about the Dorothy Parker? She's a poet.
Yes.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Connect.
No, I did not. No. Tell
Well,
me
when
more.
she died in 1967, at the age of 73, she left her entire estate to him.
To Dr.
She
King.
did?
Yes.
I did not know that either.
She did.
Wow.
I looked that up.
Were they friends in life? Do you know?
No, she had never met him. She had never met him, but she admired what he did because she, had the same problems. Actors were being blacklisted, and she wanted to do something, and she saw that he wanted to do something about what was happening too.
Wow. You learn something new every day.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah. How interesting.
And I won't blow your mind with who bought I can't even remember her name, so I won't tell you. Maybe I'll
All
tell
right.
you in an email. I'll tell you
All right.
in an email. All right, I have 2 poems, and
Okay.
you know that one of them's very short. Well, you know that both of them are very short, but this is the one. This is a brand new one I wrote this morning. You want the new one first?
Yes.
All right. It doesn't have a title. It's untitled. It's very short, but it's not a haiku, okay?
All right.
All right. Mr. King, no one could bring dreams of equality and freedom. We have leaders who seem crazy for power. We need you this very hour. The end.
Wow.
Very good.
It can
All
be
true.
It
All
can be
true.
added to. It can be added to.
Valerie, my favorite haiku queen. You incredible, Valerie.
Oh, I'm the queen! Yay! And this one you've already heard. This one you've already heard, and I said it's my version of anger, and you said, and what I read was poems of social justice. So this is justice for social. This is social justice. I think my version of being angry, and I'm not angry a lot, but here it is. Black Lives Matter. To me, to say it makes me confused and sadder. Why is it okay to hate and hurt someone for the color of their skin? It's melanin. The end.
Very
Very nice, Valerie.
good. Thank you.
But it's true. It's so true.
It is true. It is
Yeah.
true. It's melanin. It's melanin.
It is.
Wow.
No, that's the only difference between me. Well, I'm sure there are other differences. I'm female, and Dr. Ingram is male. But
Yes.
and both poets, and he just has more of that in his skin than I do. What is the big
Yes.
deal? What is the big
Yeah.
deal?
Right.
True enough. Very true.
Now
Thank
we
you,
could be
Valerie.
different. You might like broccoli, and I don't. Okay, I won't go there. Broccoli lives matter too. All right, go.
All right.
Go. I'll go too.
All right.
Yay!
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye. Yay! Bye.
There's
we got
a
another
character.
caller.
Okay.
Area code 301-710. You're on the air.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Joseph. I'm so glad that I finally got to listen to your reading, Joseph.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah.
And who is this?
This is Marianne Slick. I used to go to Michael's DC Poetry Project.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Oh, Marianne is a famous poet in her own right.
All right.
She's extremely well known. Yes. Did you come with the poem, Marianne?
I'm going to have to look at some of your work.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
please do. She has. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yes, this is a fairly new poem. It's related to social justice in that it's about a young woman, Jade Gray Christie, who's Afro-British, and like many African Americans, I guess Afro-British too, she suffered from COVID, and it's about her experience. The long hauler. She shuffles up the smooth pavement, the sidewalk she used to stride on. She staggers as if she were carrying sandbags, hands and arms empty without even a purse. She feels muffled, a bedbound summer's flesh hiding last winter's bone and muscle. The air around her slows. Leaves and dust drift past as she skirts a puddle, something she never would have seen before. Once she ran through the park, winged feet in running shoes worn only twice before this virus took her like a woman. In the horror flick she streamed all summer. To the white women walking past, she has become one of the young girls scattering empty potato chip bags in the gutter like the petals of the overripe flowers that they are, spilling out of cheap, bright shorts and crop tops, needing to be trimmed. Maskless, grasping for air like a cane or railing, she pauses, praying for far off next summer when she can fly through the park again.
Marianne, that was exceptionally nice.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I hope I brought a little attention to, I guess some aspect of social justice.
Oh yes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yes, Marianne. And Marianne, please spell your last name so that Joseph will know.
Yeah.
Okay, my last name is S as in Sam, Z as in zebra, L-Y-K. It's easy to pronounce once you know it. The Y is actually it's easy to pronounce because you don't pronounce the Z. It's slick. The Y is a short I.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and thank you for calling in, and thank you for sharing that poem.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Marianne.
Ethan's here also, if I can give the phone to him.
All right. Ethan.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm
Good.
quite well,
How are
sir.
you?
And yourself?
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah. I've been enjoying the
You have a poem
program.
you'd like to share, Ethan?
I do have a poem. I think it fits today. It's called Native Americans Return to the Suburbs. Native Americans tread, creep, sprint, and leap through American suburbs. Rabbit nibbles incessantly on vast salad bowls, breeds copiously on a million lawns, watches nervously for enemies cat and car, feels a rush of adrenaline, strange joy as she dashes into a thicket. Rabbit suckles her babies, loves them deeply, forgets them quickly, remembers the centuries, lives in the now. Deer no longer dwells in shadows, hiding from her ancient friend, ancient nemesis, humans, for whom she has time and again, kindly provided nourishment. Nowadays, deer eyes two-legged beasts, common as the stars, as curiosities, if not quite friends. Clever fox hunts from the hidden places, preserves the gardens of her tidy human neighbors from rabbit's ravages. Fox remembers her long-lost cousin wolf, slaughtered and confined to reservations. Fox mourns wolf but cannot howl. Crow struts boldly down gray streets, steps nimbly between killer machines, dines greedily on roadkill, digests corpses of squirrel, chipmunk, rabbit, deer. Flying into nearby yards, meadows, crow returns her cousins to the soil from which they sprang. Crow remembers raven, clever thief who stole the sun to alleviate humanity's suffering. Native Americans live among us, if one knows where to look. Ghosts, spirits, remnants of 50 million dead, Mohawk, Cherokee, Sioux, Ojibwe, Pawnee, Dene, countless more, names forgotten. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you for reading that.
Thank you, Ethan. Ethan has Ethan Goffman is his name, and he has an environmental poetry site.
Oh, okay. What is that site?
It's called Poetry and Planet.
Poetry and Planet?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Ethan. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. The call-in number is 646-787-1631. Joseph, what I'd like to do is recite a piece of poetry.
Good. I was hoping you'd say that.
I'm going to recite two pieces.
Good.
One is my own, and the other is by Langston Hughes.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's his poem, I Dreamed a World.
Mm.
Here we go. I dreamed a world where man, no other man will scorn, where love will bless the earth, and peace its paths adorn. I dream a world where all will know sweet freedom's way, where greed no longer saps the soul, nor avarice blights our day. A world I dream where black or white, whatever race you be, will share the bounties of the earth, and every man is free. Where wretchedness will hang its head, and joy like a pearl attends the needs of all mankind. Of such I dream my world. It's Langston Hughes.
Very nice.
And I'd like to share my version of The Dreamer.
Mm-hmm.
This is called The Dreamer.
The Dreamer. I dreamed a world, and it was clear, like it should be, that all the earth was bright and full of remarkable color. Tinged and shaped images danced and laughed gleefully as they watched strife and disappointment give way to harmony and victory throughout the land. I dreamed my life, and it was rich like it should be, yet the jewels of knowledge passed on to me by my ancestors helped me to understand that all worldly possessions are given to us solely on loan, and that we must all turn them back in when it's time for us to go on home. I dreamed for my children, that they are proud like they should be, self-respecting sons and daughters, descendants of exalted kings and queens, children who are not ashamed to accept their blood-stained roots, affirming their heritage with the same vigor used to embrace drugs, alcohol, and basketball shoes. I dreamed for us, that we are wise like we should be, intelligent men and women, inheritors of great wisdom cultivated in our ancestral homeland, wisdom that survived great oceans and cotton fields to not only stay alive inside our minds, but thrive despite a whole host of new societal ills. And I dreamed for you, that you are bold like you should be. The struggler has not succumbed to the struggle, and although your back might bend, it does not break. And while your spirit might shake, it does not quake. I dream for tomorrow, that it is ablaze like it should be. A path has been burned through the night to signal a way for a future that is crystal clear in the almighty sight. I dreamed a world.
I dreamed a world, Joseph.
Beautiful. Very nice. So glad you shared
I dreamed
that.
a world.
Yeah. That's what we have to
like
do.
Like Dr. King, we're all dreamers that things will get better.
Yeah.
That we'll find a way out of no way.
Yeah.
I think also like Dr. King, being resilient, being able to bounce back from adversity makes us that much stronger. For me, it makes me want to echo the beauty of the sun. So this is today, I think I'll echo the beauty of the sun.
Today, I think I'll echo. Today, I think I'll echo the beauty of the sun. Because like the sun, I plan to rise up and greet the morn with a dazzling brilliance that cannot be denied. and a majesty so great that the world cannot hide. So today I think I'll echo the beauty of the sun. And then I think I'll echo the song of the birds, because like the birds, I plan to sing a song so loud that the sound of my voice is carried across nations, and the power of my words will lift like the thunder that began life's creation. So today I think I'll echo the beauty of the sun and the song of the birds, and then I think I'll echo the color of the grass, because like the grass, my color is rich. So rich that the weeds cannot even touch me. Indignations cannot destroy me, because like the grass, you might step on me, cut me, cause me to fall. Just give me a minute, and I'll come back and stand just as tall. So today I think I'll echo the beauty of the sun, the song of the birds, the color of the grass, and then I think I'll echo the coolness of the breeze. Because like the breeze, I too am cool like that. I'm all around like that. You might not see me, but my presence is still strong like that, still proud like that. So today I think I'll echo the beauty of the sun, the song of the birds, the color of the grass, the coolness of the breeze. And then when nightfall shrouds the earth in a peaceful darkness, I think I'll echo the glimmer of the moon. Because like the moon, it can be as black as a starless night, but I still know my luminous spirit will shine just as bright. So today I think I'll echo the beauty of the sun, the song of the birds, the color of the grass, the coolness of the breeze, and the glimmer of the moon. And then I think I'll grab something to eat, because echoing the beauty of life always makes me hungry.
Very nice.
Well, thank you, sir.
Your poems are always grounded in something very common and ordinary and human, and I love that. Yeah, you can soar, but you come back down to some of the really basic human stuff, which is really important.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of our program, my friend.
Unless
there's anything else you'd like to share.
Just a big word of thanks to you, not only for inviting me to this, but for your commitment to this. Didn't I see something recently that you were near like the 5,000th podcast or the 5,000?
Yes, 5,000th download. Yes.
Well, that's something, and you've given a great gift to the poetry community in this way, and I want to just say my really hearty thanks to you. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Joseph. You are the man. You're incredible.
Thank you.
I will talk to you soon.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right.
You have just listened to the Quintessential Listening Poetry Online Radio Podcast with your host, Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. And make sure to catch our next episode.